Hi, today I want to show you how you can add native push notifications inside of your WeWeb application. Now, you probably know that you can add push notifications using web push to your WeWeb application, but it requires you to get very creative in how you host your application, and it's a workaround, not a native solution. Also, web push is probably going to be the second best option. The first best option is always going to be native push because you're going to have much more capabilities in what you can do and how you can work with that, especially if you already want to go beyond building a PWA and you want to have native linking to specific pages and really extensive cool features through those push notifications. So today I want to show you how you can set up native push notifications inside of WeWeb using Despia. Now, what does Despia do? Despia turns and converts your WeWeb PWA into a native mobile application for iOS and Android, allowing you to access all the native functionalities that are only reserved for real native mobile applications directly inside of your WeWeb application. And it's going to be a super smooth and simple process. I already have an application set up, so let's get started with setting up push notifications for iOS and Android. Let's take a look at that. So as you can see, I already have my WeWeb application right inside of here, right? And I already have it set up inside of Despia, which is very important. And what I already have as well is I already have it running right here on my device. So as you can see, I can open the application. It's a native mobile application downloaded through TestFlight, right? So it's a real native mobile app. And I can open that application. And as you can see, it's made in WeWeb. And it's a native mobile application coming from TestFlight, from the App Store. So now the question is, how do we set this up? So in order to set up push notifications, we more than likely want to set up remote push notifications so we can send them at any given time from our server, even while the device is off. In order to do that, we need to use OneSignal. That's a GDPR compliant, free to use push notification provider. As you can see, we also have some great documentation on the Despia documentation at docs.despia. How to set this up. So we're going to take a look at this now together and do it step by step. So first of all, we need to create a OneSignal account. And in order to do that, just sign up for a free account. You don't need a paid account. You can use a free account. That's completely fine. The difference between their paid account and their free account is if you need like email marketing and SMS, but you can get unlimited free push notifications with OneSignal that are fully GDPR compliant using their free plan. So that's worth noting. Now that we are in the OneSignal dashboard, we need to create a new app in OneSignal. So let's create a new app. And now we're going to name our app. I'm going to say my app. That's going to be my app name, right? I'm doing my app. And then organization name, you're going to put your organization inside of here. And now we're going to select iOS and Android, or we have to start with one first. So let's start with iOS and then we're going to add Android later to that. So now I'm going to have iOS right inside of here, and let's configure your platform. There you go. So now we need to get our P8 key, and that is a little bit tricky because most of the people go to the wrong key. They will take the key from App Store Connect instead of getting the one from Apple Developer. Apple has too many web applications for developers, so I'm not blaming you for that confusion, which happens to me too many times as well. But what you want to do to get this P8 key, you're going to go to developer.apple.com. You're going to go on certificates, IDs, and profiles, and you're going to click on keys. Now that you are on keys, you're going to click on plus to create a new key. I'm going to call this OneSignal my app, or just leave out the characters Apple doesn't like. There you go. And now I'm going to enable Apple Push Notification Service APNs. And now it will say this service must have environment or type configured. So let's go and configure. And now we need to go to environment, and we need to set the environment to be sandbox and production, so we can use it for testing and for our live application. Let's save that. Beautiful. Now let's scroll down here. That should be fine. We can click on continue and register. Now, as you can see, it will give us this key. Important is we can only download it once, so make sure to get your desktop ready, download it, and drag that file to your desktop and save it in a secure place, because if you lose it, you're pretty screwed. So let's go back to OneSignal and let's upload. And ooh, seems like their file uploader doesn't have a good day today. Let's upload again and let's drag that file right inside of here. Beautiful, that was successful. Now we need the key ID. Now where do we get that? We got to go back to Apple Developer, and you see you got the key ID here. We're going to copy that key ID and we're going to paste that key ID right inside of here. Now we need the team ID. The team ID is right next to your company or personal name, so you can just copy your team ID and you're going to paste that right inside of here. Now we need the bundle ID. We actually get that from the Despia dashboard. Just go on Publish App and copy your bundle ID. I know our copy doesn't give you a toast because we thought if you click on it 3 times, the toast is over the thing that you clicked and you gotta wait 10 seconds to click it again. We're working on the UI. So let's go back to OneSignal and paste your bundle ID right inside of here. Also, if you don't want a bundle ID that has our branding into it, let us know. We can change that for you manually. Or if you already come from Flutterflow and you want to migrate to Despia and you say, you know, I need my existing bundle ID. Also, I don't want your brand name in there. We can figure that out. We can do that manually for you. But we would also love if you are like a little billboard for our service. But we can change that in case you want that. Let's save and continue. Beautiful. Now I'm going to flex on you. Now, under all those options, React Native, Expo, Unity, whatever that is, Flutter, Ionic, Cordova, Despia is actually native iOS. Look at that. It's not any of those other ones, like those weird stuff. Despia counts as native iOS. It's a native, real native iOS application and a native, real native Android application. And you will feel it when you set up OneSignal because it's as simple as nothing else. So let's go on native iOS and we're going to save and continue. Beautiful. Now that's how simple this is. Now I already got my app ID right inside of here. So I'm going to copy that app ID. And now I'm going to go to my application inside of the Despia editor, and we need to set this up. So let's go all the way down here on OneSignal integration, and I'm going to do iOS application ID, and I'm going to paste the iOS application ID for OneSignal right inside of here. Now, it will be the same for Android, so if you want to set up Android, you can already paste it right inside of here. Beautiful. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to build this, and while it's building, we're going to set up Android. So let's now, after we saved that, make sure that you inserted it inside of here. Now, you will probably click on Publish. I built this dashboard with my team, so I'm just double checking if it actually saved it. Okay, I'm a little bit more paranoid about my product than you are. So perfect. So now that it actually saved it, let's publish this and let's publish the project. Beautiful. Okay, so now while it's publishing the application, little side note, that is pretty, I think, neat, is it actually now goes on a real Mac M2 computer that's somewhere in a warehouse across the world. And it's now manually, with a robot essentially, opening Xcode and building your application fully automatic. So you don't need a Mac, you don't need anything with Despia. It's a fully hosted CI/CD cloud development tool that also lets you export the code and self-host any CI/CD pipeline if you want. So you also get access to self-hosting if you want to go through the pain of setting that up. So just FYI. So there's no vendor lock-in with Despia, besides maybe, you know, our brand name being in your bundle ID, but we can get that out of there if you want. We can change that anytime, but you got to contact our customer support to do that. So let's close that. And now while it's building, we're going to set up Android. Android is also really fun to set that up. So now I actually want to keep this open. So I'm going to open OneSignal into a new tab because I still want to test this on our iOS device, if that makes sense. So let's duplicate the tab here, and let's go on settings, and let's go on push and in-app, and let's go on push platforms, and now we're going to add Android, right? And now we need our Google service account. So where the heck do we get that? That's quite simple actually. So they give us like a little documentation here, which I already have open because I always forget how to do that. But essentially what you need to do is you need to create a Firebase project first. So let's go to the Firebase console, and you want to important log in under the same Google account that's linked to your Google Play Console developer account. And I'm just going to create a new Firebase project. I'm going to call this my app. That's my app name, Despia. There you go. And I'm going to continue. I'm now going to select a default account for Firebase. Let's create the project. Now this will take a little bit because they're setting up your server, all the infrastructure for you for your Firebase account. So just lean back, have a little coffee. It'll take about a minute to set this up fully. There you go. It's finishing up. Just a little bit more. Okay, perfect. Let's continue. Now we're going to open this project here. And now we want to probably take a look at their documentation again. I'm here. I need to go on project settings. Okay, perfect. So I feel like they change the UI all the time because the photos that you have in their documentation are completely different to how the UI now looks. But let's go on project settings, and then you should be able to go to service accounts, right? Let's take a look. You go on cloud messaging. Perfect. So let's go on the Firebase, and we go on cloud messaging. That makes sense. And let's take a look again. And now you need to do on Firebase messaging API version 1. And we need to make sure that this is disabled. So it's disabled, click 3 dots, open in Cloud Console. Oh, it needs to be enabled actually. So go to Messaging tab. If Firebase Cloud Messaging API version 1 is disabled, click the 3 dots, open in Cloud Console. Okay, in the Cloud Console, click Enable. Okay, so we need to make sure that this is enabled. So let's go back here. And as we can see on Cloud Messaging, Firebase Cloud Messaging API v1 is actually enabled. So we can skip this step from their documentation. So that's good. Now we need to generate a service account JSON. So return to the project settings, service accounts. At the bottom, click generate new private key. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go to service accounts. I remember you had to do it over there. So this was just like a check step. So make sure that Firebase Cloud Messaging API v1 is enabled. Then we go on service accounts. And now we will need to generate a new private key. And let's generate the key. And now as you can see, we got the key downloaded, which is just a JSON file. So I'm just going to, add that to my desktop to make sure that I'm not going to lose it like we did with the iOS one. So now I'm going to go to OneSignal. I'm going to choose file, and I'm going to upload this Google Service Account JSON file. Perfect. So now I'm going to save and continue. And now I'm going to flex on you again because, Despia is not Cordova, not React Native, yet not Unity, not Flutter, not Ionic, not all the other weird stuff. It is considered native Android because you're building and you're converting your WeWeb application into a native Android application. So let's click on native Android and let's save and continue. Perfect. Now we got the ID. As you can see, it's OC4A. If you take a look at the Despia project, it's also OC4A. So the ID stays the same like we did before because it's within one project. So let's now go back here. So now we have this iOS APN tab to test that, and we have this Google FCM configuration to test that as well. So now what we need to do is we need to also rebuild, because the moment we add this inside of here, we need to rebuild the native application in Despia. So we did this for iOS, which is fine. It should work. Now we also want to do this for Android if you already have your Android application. Now I don't have an Android application yet, but I'll go behind the scenes and pretend I already have one and we're going to take a look at that as well after a little cut. But now if I go to iOS, to Google Android, I would just click on Publish App, and it will now also build the Android application, which will be also pretty cool. So now, while the Android application is building, we want to test the, native push capabilities. So let's reload this page here for Apple iOS, and this should be fine. Let's save and continue. Save and continue. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have this ID. Now let's open our iPhone and let's test this again. And ooh, I'll do a little cut. So now I'm logged in on my iPhone. So let's update this so that we get the latest ID configured with the app ID, so that the OneSignal SDK is nicely set up. And now let's close this app and let's open the application again. Our application, that's our WeWeb application, right? And now once we open it, we can check for subscribers, and you see my iPhone 14.2 has been successfully subscribed. So you see that this is now nicely working. And this worked. So this is how we ensure that the connection was actually successful. So we can try sending a message, and let's call this test message. And I need to send to particular segments. I need to include a segment. I need to have active subscription, and let's do also total subscriptions. OneSignal has made an update that when you send to total subscribers, for some reason it doesn't work. You need to send to a segment that's active or total subscriptions. I don't know why they did that. It may be a bug in their system. It may be already resolved, but last week I couldn't do this, which I always usually could do. So this is kind of like, in case I still have the bug while you're testing and you're wondering why your push notifications do not work, use this to fix it. But it only works like in their testing thing, so just keep that in mind. Let's do a title. Despia push subtitle. This is a real native push notification. And then let's go with the message. You have to try Despia today at https://despia.com. Perfect. Now that's it. We can do some other settings if we want, but we're just going to skip that. Perfect. And now let's deliver this immediately, send to everyone at the same time, review and send. And let's send the message, and let's open my iPhone real quick, because we should be getting the push notification. And I got the push notification. So how am I going to show that to you in here? Ooh, I got it. So as you can see on my phone here, I got the push notification, the native one. I do not completely know how I would show this to you on this little thing here, because it doesn't let me scroll down. No, I don't. I think I can't. Let's try closing that. No, it seems like no, that doesn't work. And I can't get that down. So you gotta take a look at my screen right here. I got the native push notification on the device. Take a look at that. So I got it right inside of here. Beautiful. So it does work. So it's just we can't see it because I'm in the simulator with my phone. But, just keep that in mind. Perfect. So now that we have this all nicely set up, we want to take a look at our Android thing. So let's double check on our Android application. And let's see. And Android is still publishing, so that can take... Oh, look at that, it was successful. I always love seeing this success. That's beautiful. Perfect. So now for the Android, I actually do have to set that up real quick on an Android phone. Now, if you are curious and you haven't set that up already, which I assume you already have in the video, take a look at our step-by-step Android publishing video, which is also available on this documentation here. But I'm going to make a little cut. I'm going to make it set up for Android, and then we're going to test the push notifications also on our Android device. So see you in a second. So now, as you can see, I have it installed, the application, and when we go back to the Android OneSignal panel to test this, to check for subscribers, it's going to say the user didn't opt in. Now, the user did opt in, and it should successfully send the push notification. With Android, it really depends on the manufacturer of the phone, what version of Android they're running. My phone is not up to date, so don't be discouraged when it says it doesn't work. Most of the times it does work. It's just that the phone itself has some issues that, result in it not being triggered by their system to show that it was successfully registered. But this is common with Android because every Android device runs their own version of Android, and then there are differences between, like, if you have a Samsung A series or a Galaxy series, they kind of like have their own versions. So don't be disencouraged when you get any error messages for anything in Android. It's more than likely not an error, it's just it doesn't like send the appropriate callback that it would need because their system is not like on one level, if that makes sense. It will make sense once you get started developing stuff in Android. This is just like something that's common with Android. But we're working on making that more clear and handling certain things for the phone that it may not be handling itself based on what manufacturer it's from. But don't, be disencouraged by any error message. It will still work. So let's go on done. Perfect. And now we can send a test message. So the message that I already sent, I can just duplicate. And now we got to be fast. Let's just run that message again. So let's send and review. And let's send message. And let's open this quick. And I just sent the message. You see how I just got another push? So if I go down here, you saw I just received the push message. And I can click on here. And I'll open the application. Look at that. So it did work, and you heard the notification in the background. So there you go. That is how you set that up on iOS and Android for WeWeb. Now, one thing that you probably saw is we got the batch, like 2 messages, 3 messages, which is something that Web Push doesn't have. We can do even cooler things on iOS as well. I don't know if we can do this actually from their platform, but we can set the batch count, at least from their API. Let's see. No, we can't set the batch count, I think, from here. We can do sound, which is something we're actually adding. Push topic, large icon, category, media. No, actually we can't do it from here, but we can do it from the API, which is even cooler. So now let's go to the next part. Now we can send them from OneSignal, but what if we want to send a push notification to only this specific user dynamically? So for that, let me set up my iPhone again, and then we'll take a look at that. It is quite a pain mirroring 2 phones, an iOS and an Android, on a Mac computer at the same time. So I apologize for that. I'll be back in a second. As you can see, I managed to get it working. So now one thing that we want to do is we want to go to our documentation. Now our documentation about OneSignal gives you the way to get the player ID for this specific device. And what you can do is you can have your WeWeb application run this to get the player ID. And then you can set the player ID in a variable and send it alongside the user account ID that is coming from your authentication session to your backend to then relate the player IDs for that user to their account to then loop over them on your backend and send individual personalized push notifications only to that user using OneSignal's API. So for that, let's first get the player ID, and we can just get this by logging the variable after running this line of code, or it would be also auto-injected. So what we can do to set this up is pretty simple. Let's go on WeWeb and let's add a little action to this. So I'm going to just add a text area so I can copy it. A text input here. Perfect. And now I'm going to go on my data variables here, and I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call this OneSignal player ID. Now you probably don't want to put this on a text area, but I'm just doing this for illustration purposes because we're talking about the principle on how to do this. And it's just going to be text, and I'm going to go to the input, and I'm going to set the initial value to be the OneSignal player ID. And to make sure that it actually works, I'm going to set the default value as none. There you go. Perfect. So now we get this nicely set up, and now we actually need to get the value into the variable. So what I like to do is I like to go and, no, not that. We need to create an onMount, onload workflow. So how about we go here on the page that we're on, and you want to add this on every page usually, and we're going to create a workflow. So trigger page workflows, and we're going to create a page workflow, and that's going to be on page load, which on app load, on page scroll, yeah, it should be probably on page load, and we're going to add an action, and that action is going to be a little bit of custom code. No, actually, we can set the variable directly without a custom code block. My apologies. So let's go on change variable value, and I'm going to say set OneSignal player ID. There you go. Set OneSignal player ID. Now I'm going to do change variable value. The variable will be OneSignal player ID, and the value will be JavaScript. And we're just going to return the OneSignal player ID. So this will be this value right inside of here, which will be actually this one. I apologize. So under the second step, access OneSignal player ID, Despia will inject a variable, OneSignal player ID, into your application. You don't actually need to call our event handler because we pre-inject it. So you can just go, where did WeWeb go? There you go. And just paste this inside of here and return OneSignal player ID, because it will pre-inject it into the native runtime that Despia runs within, which is pretty cool. So let's close this. Done. And now when we run this, it will of course do undefined, because it is not available in WeWeb, but it will be available in the WeWeb application. So let's go in here. We can also do one thing. We can also go and do OR and do sample ID for editor. So you got like a test value to work with. So now when we run this and test this workflow, you see how you're setting it to kind of like set it as sample ID for workflow for internal testing purposes if you want. So that's just one thing that you can do to make it easier for you to work with it in the WeWeb editor, because this will not be available in the WeWeb editor because it doesn't run in a native mobile device. So let's close that, and let's close that. Beautiful. So now we have our on-page workflow here, and let's probably also name that. Let's call this set OneSignal player ID. And now what you would probably also want to do to associate the player ID with the user, you want to add another action to now call Xano. So you want to do an API call, or call Xano, call Supabase, call whatever your backend will be, Airtable if you want, Convex, whatever. And you will take this OneSignal player ID alongside the user ID of the currently logged in user, if you have that available, and you will then add that as a table reference in a linking table to your database. So you will have one column user ID, one column player ID. You will add that, and then when you want to send a unique push notification, you will go to that linking table and get all their player IDs based on the specific user ID and send a push notification to all of that devices for that user saying, hey, your order was just shipped, or whatever you want to say only to them, because not everybody needs to know when Mike's order was shipped. So there you go, but we're not going to set that up because then this video is going to be 3 hours. But this is kind of like the principle, and if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help with that. So let's close this here. So now that we have this set up, we should be able to deploy this. I hope that the on-page load workflow is the appropriate thing to do in WeWeb. If anybody has any better ideas, please let me know. But let's try deploying the application, and let's try deploying that, and let's see. I'm a little bit nervous because it doesn't set OR, when I run this. So also I need to delete this workflow, but we'll see. Let's delete that. Perfect. Okay, now it's deploying the application, and now it was successfully deployed. So let's try reloading the WeWeb editor. The fact that it still says none is a little bit weird, but we'll see if it works. If not, we're going to have to try something else. But it is linked correctly, right? And I have my page. I'm doing my on-page workflow. It should, because if it is null or undefined, it should default back. Let's take a look at the workflow again. On edit, I'm setting that variable. I'm doing OneSignal player ID, or I'm returning that. I'm setting that one. OneSignal player ID is not defined, right? But if it's not defined, it should be taking this. Let's see, it should work. Like, based on my understanding of how JavaScript works in WeWeb, it should work, but let's see if it works, right? Let's try opening the application, and we also need to close the application to open it again. The nice thing about Desktop is it has over-the-air updates like a PWA would, while being a native mobile application. So let's see. And now it does work. Beautiful. So my understanding of JavaScript in WeWeb is correct. That makes me feel very well. Okay, so now you see we got this player ID, which for some reason I can't correctly copy, which is not that nice. So I do want to copy that. So let's build a little action for us to click a button and to copy the player ID so I can show you how to call the API. So let's just add a button real quick. Okay, and let's call that copy player ID. Beautiful. And now when I go on this button, I'm going to create a workflow called copy player ID, and I'm going to add an action of copy to clipboard, and the value I'm copying to clipboard will be the variable of player ID. And I'm going to close that. Beautiful. So now I'm going to redeploy this whole thing, and we're going to then get the player ID so I can show you how to run the code on your backend. We're just going to use Xano as an example because I believe 90% of all WeWeb users use Xano, but you can just do the same thing on Supabase and whatever your backend wants to be. Even make Zapier, N8N, whatever you want to do. You could even have an AI agent call it if you want, theoretically. So let's close the application again. Let's see if our copy button works. Okay, so let's open the native mobile app built in WeWeb and Desktop, and let's copy the player ID, and let's hope it works in the simulator. Let's try pasting that. Oh, that works brilliantly. Perfect. Okay, just clear that then actually. Perfect. So now we can set that up on the backend. So I already have an example Xano API group set up. So let's add a new API, and oh, for some reason Xano reloads. Okay, let's add a new API, and let's add a custom endpoint of send push, and there will be a post request, and we're going to save that. Okay, now inside of here I'm going to add a function which will be an external API call. Keep in mind you want to integrate this in your existing workflows, into your existing APIs, right? So this creating the API is just for me to illustrate that to you, but what you want to do is you want to create an external API request. You want to go on import curl, you want to go on our documentation, and you want to go all the way down here on server implementation, sending custom push notifications, and you can now copy this, and you can now go inside of here and you can paste this, and now we will just need to get our app ID. So this can come from an environment variable, whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to import this, and now we're going to change the app ID with our dynamic app ID. So I'm going to go to Despia, which is actually where I pasted that in, right? And I'm going to get my OneSignal application ID. It should be both for the platform, so they want to be created under one project. And now I'm going to go inside of here. I'm going to put that in here on the key app ID. And I'm going to set the player ID of the person I'm trying to send the push notification to. That is arguably this specific device. So let's copy the player ID. put that inside of here. You can put a list of player IDs inside of here so you can get them dynamically from your backend based on the user that's currently logged in or based on the user for which you're currently running this backend automation or cron job. So this is how you can individually send that message, and you can just relate this player ID to their user ID that you're storing in the database to their primary key or something like that. And then headings, en, I can just do hello. This is a test notification from Despia. I can live with that. Now we need our REST API key. Now you do want to, have this set as an environment variable in your backend, but for test purposes, I assume we can just do it normally. So I'm going to go on settings. I'm going just to say, okay, yes, I want to leave this page. And we're going to go on keys and IDs on settings. And now I'm going to go on add new API key. I'm going to call this Xano or whatever backend you're using. You can also IP restrict it if you want. Let's create. And let's copy that key to our clipboard. And let's just paste this inside of here. Please don't do this. Please use environment variables. And let's save that. And let's save. And let's run this. So now when we run this, the unique thing is we're sending this to only the specific person which we can get, right? Assuming that inside of this WeWeb application, we would know who is logged in, which you should know, otherwise you don't have authentication set up. You could then call on page load and API to kind of like patch the record in the database, add or edit record to create this association between this specific player ID and this specific user, which is pretty cool. So now, we are sending us to the specific device, which will be my iPhone. So let me just close all notifications. I'm going to hold my iPhone in the camera so you can see it pop up. Let's save this and let's run. And as you can see, I just got the push notification. I can run it again. And I just got a push notification. I can run it again. And I just got a push notification. I can run it again. And I just got a push notification. I can run it again and again and again and again and again. Oh, there you go. And again and again and again and again. Look at that. Look at that. So now if I unlock my phone, you see how it's going to add all those notifications. If I clear them, see, it's adding all those notifications. I'm sending so many, it even says, do you want to temporarily mute this notification? So you see how I can now natively send notifications from my backend to target specific users in my application. It would work the same, just getting the player ID from the Android device, sending the push notifications to the Android device. So it's pretty cool what you can do with it, and you can target specific users. So you don't have to send a push notification to every user. You can say only those two or only this specific person, because you can get the player ID, and that player ID is the unique association of the device. So think of it like the device ID that represents this device, and you can use this device ID, this player ID, to send a push notification only to this player that's logged in. And when they logged in, you know their user ID, so you can relate the user ID to the player ID that you can get with this variable principle that we showed in here, getting the OneSignal player ID variable that Despia exposes inside of its native runtime, which will be this one right here that we're console logging in this example of the documentation. And you can set that up. And the beautiful thing is we didn't write any custom line of JavaScript, any custom line of Swift, any custom line of Kotlin or Java. You just set this up in the visual editor from Despia, and you get this whole powerful system going on with push notifications. And as we're talking about this, we're already working on adding, and this is my favorite feature, we're adding a new push notification sound. It's not live yet, but we're doing everything in our power to get this out there with the next release of Despia, because that is a very important feature to me. And this is getting the cha-ching sound. And, where did I put it? Where did I put it? There you go. So we're going to add a new push notification sound that's going to come very soon. We're going to add this sound. It's going to be a new sound added. So in case you're building an application where users sell stuff, you can now send them instead of a ping, a cha-ching. That has been a very requested feature by me to my team, so it's coming soon. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate that. I can't wait to see all the exciting mobile applications that you're going to build with Despia and WeWeb, and I hope we have some use cases, or that you will have some use cases for the cha-ching sound coming very soon that you can add with the custom sound. But yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I can't wait to see what you're building with Despia. Take care, and hopefully see you in our support chat so I can help you set up your application. Take care. Bye.